Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is my everything in bloom on the 8th. Quickly. There's two reasons for quickly. I got stuff to do. I don't want to go into it. And in addition to that, there's an awful lot of blooms have gone. So there's not actually anywhere near as much to film as last time and the time before. But that's how it goes. Things come, things go. And that was a good start. Come out to film everything in bloom and cut 2 spikes off. That was a good start. Anyway, I'll go round. I'm not doing a tripod job today. I haven't got time. And quite honestly, the things like the Restrepias that need the tripod, they're having a rest at the moment. They've had lots of blooms over a long period of time, and there's only, just looking down through the shelf, I can see one of the Restrepias has one bloom just opening, so it's not worth getting the tripod out for that. So we'll just go round anyway. The Coleogene Moriana is looking good still. Now, I wasn't expecting these to last quite this long. The second spike is opening down here. That's being silly because that's opening before it's extended properly out of the growth. So, well, I can lever it out, but one of the blooms was still tucked in between the leaves. But there's still a third spike to come on this one, so this is going to be in bloom a long, long time. It's a pity it's not highly fragrant because the blooms are beautiful. But and it's a first time bloomer for me too, so you know, I'm appreciating it and the longevity of the blooms. That's really good. But as I said, it's the time when more things are going than coming. The Spring Dreamer pollen still has some blooms, and there's still a few buds to come. So that's been in bloom absolutely ages. That's the mother plant, as I call it. I took some kikis off last year, which are also in bloom, but this one's coming to the end of its blooming time, at which point I probably will repot it. New growths are pushing out, smashing down the bottom, but not as many as I was expecting. I think it's getting tired. I might have to sort of look at ways of rejuvenating it, and that'll be an interesting video. You might not agree with it when I do it, but that's soon. This little Dendrobium Stardust Firebird is looking good as far as the blooms are concerned, but that's just kikis basically in a pot. But it did manage to push out some blooms, and I despise this plant because of the nature, the way it grows. It's just a kiki machine, and it's difficult to stop that happening, and it makes a cane dendrobium just look untidy if it's a mass of kikis. But it does have a new growth coming out at the base for once, you know, where it should be. So it's behaving itself at the moment. I discarded the mother plant. I got so fed up with the look of it. I took some kikis off and I thought, well, if you grow properly, I'll keep you. Otherwise, you're going to be somebody else's. But the blooms are attractive. I mean, there's no getting away from that. The Comet King Kiki is just finishing now. The lip's closed, so that's going to drop in the next day or two. So that doesn't really count, does it? The Varnagara apple blossom is stunning at the moment because we've had this hot weather with a lot of bright sunshine. The fragrance on this during the day is absolutely wonderful. And I think several people have realised now the subtlety of the shades of colour plus the fragrance. This isn't a good one to film because it just doesn't come over as well as it does in, like, for real life. But yeah, it's looking good. I'm starting at least one new growth down the base there. The come on brain, Epidendrum Comet Valley Orange Star is looking good, and it's going to be looking good for many months. It's still extending on the top of every single one of these bloom heads. It's going to be in bloom probably for most of the summer, and it has got new canes growing at the base now to replace these once they do finally finish. Now, these can produce kikis now and again. I mean, if you look at the base of the plant, I mean, some of the canes are not coming out from the ground, from the pots. They are coming out part way up a cane. So it has got that nature of growth to it. But That's probably one of the best value for money orchids I've ever bought, or in recent times anyway. I mean, that was not an expensive orchid. It was in bloom when I got it, with loads of new growths, and all of the new growths have produced these blooms, and it's going to bloom for a long, long time. So well worth having. It's a Epidendrum radicans type, if you're after this sort of thing. But most of the ones that you'll find are just going to be a hybrid, and most of them won't have a name, unfortunately. I just happen to know somebody in the business who can get the names for me. Right, that's that one. This unnamed dendrobium, and lots of people have tried to help identify this, and lots of people have been close. Same as I have, but I haven't got it yet, and probably never will. The guy I got this from had it many, many years. Yeah, so you're going back to an old hybrid. May never have been done again since, and it looks like the name just may well have been lost. But it's down to its last, literally, its last couple of blooms. So that'll be gone soon. But these are the most recent two that have opened. It's very like the Stardust Firebird, but it isn't really when you look really, really closely. My only Latoria type, as with most Latoria types, last forever, or they seem to. Pretty blooms. Slightly fragrant if you get close enough. Patterning on the back of the blooms, that's another trait of Latoria types. Not all of them, but a lot of them have more colour and patterning on the back than they do on the front. And there's several other spikes over there in bloom. I just checked my notes on this one. This spike here opened in November. Yeah, November. Last year, November. So they are good stuff. Coming up into the long cane dendrobiums, unfortunately, these are not long lasting. Now, Hercoglossam's looking good. Again, some blooms to go. Yeah, those are the first ones that opened, so they're dropping on the floor now. More mess to clear up. But there's still buds to open on this. There's bunches of buds in places still not open, so there's plenty more to come on this. Hopefully that's the last leaf doing autumn in the summer. But this grows funny. It grows continuously. It grows through the winter. The new canes up the top there, those are last year's new growths, and some of those have got buds on too. That's unusual. But the brand new growths are just starting at the base. These ones up the top are last year's canes. They grow upright from the mount, and then they arch, and then gradually they end up down here. That's like about a 2-year process before they end up down here and become the mass bloomers that they are. Eventually the canes do drop all their leaves, probably by the end of the 3rd year. So it's not truly deciduous, it's eventually deciduous. But this always puts on a good show for me. These are lovely blooms, delicate little blooms, not big and blousy. Right, the others, the anosmum's still looking quite good, but I noticed this morning the first bloom's fading on the far side there. So not many days left of this one. The Nestor's fading, yeah, so not many days left on that one. So a short-lived but spectacular show. And as they are hanging plants, going mad at the base with new growths at the moment, as they are hanging plants, I'm quite happy to live with these plants until the next time they bloom, because they won't bloom in between, not these types. So you get, if you're lucky, about 3 weeks worth of that sort of show, and then you've got to wait another 11 and a bit months before it does it again. And if they don't get that winter treatment, the old resting treatment, then they're not going to do that. So they do involve a little bit of work and, you know, treatments at different times of year. But for a show like that, I'm happy to do it. And as you know, dendrobiums are my favourites anyway. The prima donna is all but gone. And again, that's been in bloom since about the end of January. Yeah, a start-up blooming with a few blooms, followed by a mass blooming, followed by a trickle, which is, with a big nobly, that's what you can expect, rather than them all coming at once. The latest buds are just fading, and there are no more buds on this one. So I'm not sure whether that's due a repot. I'll have to check my notes, but there's a few canes to come off. And what I do with the Noblies is once the blooms have finished, I tie the plant quite upright with the canes quite close together, because they're not going to grow any more leaves. Some of the canes are deciduous. If they've used up all of their nodes and they have no place left to bloom, those canes will come off on a big plant like this. On a younger plant, I'd leave them. But on an older plant like this, that's probably going to chuck out another 5 or 6 new growths this year, these old depleted canes are just making the plant look tatty. But it has to be, if you're going to take canes off Nobly types, you've got to do it with care. There's a balance between the number of new growths that should complete their growth in the growing season, the number of canes that are still leaved, that may have bloomed in places but haven't. If you look at this cane here, that's last year's growth. It's bloomed down to there. Well, it hasn't bloomed all down here yet, so that will bloom again next year. And it's a nice plump cane, so that stays, as do ones like this. That's only bloomed near the top, so the bottom half of that will bloom next year. So it has to be done with care. You don't just deplete the strength of the plant all in one go. It's a balance. Number of old desiccated canes. For instance, if I had a plant with 2 canes like this and 1 new growth, these would have to stay for a while because they're holding some goodness, some strength to the plant. So it has to be done with care. You don't just hack them off. Some thought goes into it. So that's nearly over. The other Spring Dreamer pollen kikis, they've still got blooms on tucked away in there. I'm not going to get it out. So that's looking good. My Shari baby spike's looking okay. I think there's a couple of new growths just starting on that one, and the other Shari baby has got some new growths coming on, so we will have more of these down the line. But with the weather we've been having lately, the fragrance on this has been absolutely stunning, and yeah, good stuff. This this was Odontoglossum crispum and is now Oncidium alexandrae, and sorry, I thought I saw some bugs. Bug spotter extraordinaire. Can see them from miles away. After a while, your eyes just tune in, and it's basically anything that doesn't look right. You know, if you're looking at shiny green leaves and there's some dots on there of some odd colour, you know, white, green, black, well, they shouldn't be there. Go and have a close look. They could be bugs, could just be dust. I mean, I do envy people that can get their plants out in the rain and give them a flipping good wash off. But, I mean, unfortunately today, because of the heat we've had, my plants that mustn't dry out are coming round to needing watering much sooner than they would normally. And I'm out again all day tomorrow. I don't want to actually water them today, but I'm going to do something I don't do very often, but I do when we get this weather. I'm going to go round with the sprayer and literally just spray an amount of water in the tops of some of those pots to tide them over till Thursday. That's all it's for. I'm not trying to water them properly with the sprayer, because there's no substitute for pouring 3 or 4 glassfuls of water through the pot and absolutely drenching it. You can't really do that much with a sprayer. Not to that extent. You can't really soak a pot. If you're outside and you can just keep pumping water in the top and it runs out the bottom, that's fine. But, you know, I'm limited. And last but not least, it isn't much this time, is it? Is the, oh no, I forgot. Poor old Phalaenopsis. Forgotten, don't they? This is still looking good, actually. And the fragrance on this is not strong. It's supposed to be, but it isn't. But nonetheless, this is a branched spike. The original spike had 3 blooms, I think, and then it branched out from farther back in 2 places. And I mean, this spike had 1 bloom on, 2 I think. One's already gone. And both of these spikes and the original spike look like they could extend. I don't think it's going to branch again, but lovely long-lasting blooms and lovely shades. You know, yellow and purple don't normally go well together, but when you get the spottiness making the change between purple through to yellow, it seems to work. But that's the Phalaenopsis Sweet Memory. Nice blooms. Nearly forgotten again. As I say, poor old Phalaenopsis. And last but not least is the bush. These blooms do last well. A lot of these are starting to look a bit jaded now, but even as they start to fade, they still last 4 or 5 days. I was just having a quick look round the bush to see if we've got any more buds coming. I'm not sure I have, so I think that may be it. But I wasn't expecting this to actually bloom, so yeah, these have been interesting. No mass blooming by any means, and you know, I'm looking to push on the growths now. Got new roots at the base. No signs of actual new canes at the moment, but it definitely needs to come out of that pot and get some more room for itself. I don't really know what's in that pot. It hasn't been repotted since I got it. Just having a quick scan. I don't see any more buds on that one. So anyway, there's plenty of spikes and buds to come. You know, so there will be blooms down the line. Some are repeat bloomings, old favourites coming back and having another go, and there's a couple of first-time bloomers lurking in there. So there's more to come, but as I said, there's more going than coming at the moment. Oh, forgot me. I just completely forgot that. Right, this is my only Tolumnia actually in bloom at the moment. This is the Jarak something flyer, Black Magic. Anyway, it's Black Magic. And the other lovely orange shades Tolumnia I had, you'll like this, had an accident. I went round with the sprayer, and it was here with the spike arching out, and I sprayed these plants up here like that with the sprayer, and as I brought the sprayer down, the spike caught in the handle of the sprayer, and as I lowered my hand like that, it stripped all the blooms off. And those were the last ones on that spike, so I basically stripped them off. They probably had another week or more to go before they were going to fade, so that was a shame. Accidents happen. There was some language. And this Phalaenopsis type, this has been in bloom a very long time. This is Thai Angel, and I think they're starting to look a bit faded now, so they're not long for this world now. But that hasn't bloomed for an incredibly long time. But it did push up a beautiful strong cane last year, which has now bloomed. So from a tatty looking object that nearly went out under the hedge, it's redeemed itself and it has bloomed. As a Phalaenopsis type, that is not a good spike. You know, 4 or 5 blooms for a Phalaenopsis type is not good. There should be an awful lot more. But that's starting some new growth at the base too, so as I say, that one's redeemed itself. The other Phalaenopsis type had several blooms on that didn't last long at all, so they tried to open but blasted and never hung in there. This one, however, has been on this plant well over 2 months now. It's just hanging on. What the plant's doing, I'm not sure at the moment. My Phalaenopsis one's Dendrobium types, so the only Dendrobium types that don't grow very well for me. I've never really understood why. And the only Cattleya, apart from the Avanagara, that's out at the moment, and again, not long. This is the last spike, but this is the one with the long name. Little, oh God, I've forgotten. Shin Fong, Little Sun, Young Min, Golden Boy. It's a mouthful for you. But not large Cattleya blooms, but the intensity of the colour is just stunning. You know, the deep red in the lip, the frilliness of the lip, lovely uniform bloom. Well pleased with that one. So that's that. As I say, nearly missed that whole lot out. And yeah, that is it now, definitely. Just scanning round frantically. Yeah, that is it. There's Miltonia. Donald has got buds on again, and there's one of the other Miltonia's got a spike starting. My Disas have got spikes. Shelob Tolkien's coming soon. There's loads to come, but just a gap now. So I'll enjoy this while it's here, because this is not the last mass blooming of any of my cane dendrobiums. There are some others. There's another nobly to come soon. There's a mass of buds. There's another one up the back that's pushing buds all over the place. But yes, as far as the actual blooms go, that's it at the moment. This is nice though. So's that. Good morning. We're awake now, are we? Yes, this is one of my pinguiculars. Now this is one of the 3 I got from the carnivorous plant nursery out in Hampshire last year. So that's a first time bloomer. This one blooms on and off all the time. I've had that one a while from Oliver. That was a present from Oliver. But that's delicate. That's pretty. That's the first time I've seen that. Lovely violet sort of purple. Yeah, they come and go with their blooms, but at the moment they're all bursting into growth. You know, I mean, this one's a massive rosette type growth at the moment, so that one should push on nicely. So that's it for today then, and as I say, I'm out all day tomorrow. I don't even know if I'll have time to film anything, and I'll be back on track on Thursday with the couple of bonsai videos. Some people have started getting worried that I'm giving up on my orchids. Yeah, that'll be the day. It's pure coincidence that there happen to be a couple of bonsai things together. There probably won't be one for ages now. Yeah. But you know, it is my sort of secondary hobby. It does lurk away in the background. But unlike the orchids with the blooms coming and going and repotting and stuff like that, it's not an active hobby in as much as the orchid hobby is. So it's a hobby to step back and have a look at now and again. You know, I mean, in the winter there's nothing to do with a bonsai hobby. The trees just sit outside in the garden, you know, for 3-4 months. Don't need any attention, nothing happens. So it's not a very active hobby. So it would never be my main one. It was once, but not anymore. So don't worry, I'm not giving up on my orchids. I'm not giving up on things like that. Never. See you next time then. Thanks for dropping by.